Paul Heyman exposes Seth Rollins' WWE exit plan after injury. Shocking betrayal revealed. Is Seth Rollins really leaving WWE for AEW? Paul Heyman drops a bombshell, and Seth finally breaks his silence. In this informative video, Paul Heyman reveals Seth Rollins' alleged plan to walk away from WWE after suffering a devastating ligament injury that ruled him out of SummerSlam 2025. With emotions running high, Rollins delivers a raw, emotional statement: "I feel betrayed. How can WWE do this to me, after all I've done for the company?" You don't want to miss this intense backstage drama that could shake WWE to its core. Is this the end of Seth Rollins and WWE? What would you do if the man who gave everything to the industry, his body, his heart, his loyalty, was discarded like a broken toy the moment he couldn't stand on his own 2 feet? If the very company he helped carry on his shoulders, night after night, turned its back the moment his knee gave out? If the truth behind the curtain revealed not just injury, but betrayal? This is not just a story about wrestling. It's about legacy. It's about loyalty. And it's about a man who found out that in WWE, you're only as valuable as your next match. Seth Rollins is not just a performer. He's not just a champion. He was WWE. Until now. And as he sits alone, nursing a shattered ligament and an even more shattered sense of trust, the unthinkable has begun to circulate. Seth Rollins might be leaving WWE. And the one man unafraid to speak the truth? The man who once stood by Roman Reigns. Who built an empire from whispers and shadows. Paul Heyman. He's seen the cracks forming behind the scenes. And now, he's speaking out. But before we dive into this shocking exposé, make sure you subscribe. This is a story they didn't want you to hear. It all started with a limp. What looked like a minor stumble in his match against Gunther on Monday Night Raw turned into something much darker. Medical scans revealed the diagnosis: complete ligament rupture in the left knee. The WWE Universe wept. SummerSlam, Rollins' promised redemption arc, was gone. In a moment, the vision of him lifting that title once again, silencing his enemies, was torn apart just like the ligament in his leg. But what happened next wasn't compassion. It wasn't loyalty. It wasn't the brotherhood he fought to preserve for over a decade. It was silence. WWE issued a brief statement. Cold. Clinical. Rollins is ruled out of SummerSlam due to injury. Further updates will follow. No tribute. No gratitude. No soul. To the fans, it looked like a setback. But behind the scenes, something far more brutal was unraveling. Seth Rollins wasn't just benched. He was being replaced. Sources backstage confirmed it. Conversations had already begun, quiet ones, about reshaping the card. Pushing newer faces. Even giving the spotlight to returning veterans. And for Rollins? No calls. No meetings. Not even a courtesy update. Until one man rang his phone. A man with no stake in Rollins' career, and yet, with more insight into WWE's soul than anyone alive. Paul Heyman. He didn't call as an advocate. Not as a manipulator. He called as a man who's seen it all. And what he told Rollins shattered everything. "Seth," he said, voice low, deliberate. "They've already moved on. You're yesterday's headline. They're grooming someone else for your spot at SummerSlam. And worse, there are talks with AEW about a future offer. From you." Rollins was stunned. At first, he laughed, bitter, defensive. "What the hell are you talking about, Paul?" he spat. But Heyman wasn't joking. He told Seth about the internal discussions. About a clause in Rollins' contract allowing for early release under medical duress, something almost no one knew. And worse? He told him that WWE had already floated his name to AEW executives. Not as an asset. But as dead weight. A burden they were subtly encouraging to walk away. Rollins was silent. Not because he didn't believe it, but because deep down, he already felt it. He'd sensed the change in the air since WrestleMania. Since his feud with Cody wrapped. Since Roman Reigns went silent. He was supposed to carry the show. And he did. Week after week. Injured, limping, exhausted, but performing. He bled for them. He bled for us. And yet now, it was like none of it mattered. Seth didn't sleep that night. He sat in the dark, phone in hand, watching old matches. His voice hoarse. His eyes red. Watching the moment he curb-stomped Triple H. The moment he cashed in at WrestleMania. Moments when the crowd erupted like he was a god. But gods fall fast in WWE. Especially when they're broken. The next morning, Seth Rollins broke his silence. He posted a cryptic message to Instagram. A black and white image of his knee wrapped in ice. And a single caption. Loyalty. Doesn't mean what it used to. The comment section exploded. Fans speculated. Teammates went quiet. And Paul Heyman? He doubled down. In a backstage interview never meant to air, one that leaked just hours after Rollins' post, Heyman looked dead into the camera and said, "I have stood in the shadows of giants. I have whispered into the ears of champions. But what I saw last week was not strategy, it was betrayal. Seth Rollins is not just a wrestler. He's a foundation. And WWE is letting the house burn." His words echoed through every locker room, every boardroom, every newsroom in the industry. Seth Rollins. The man who survived the authority. The man who turned his back on the Shield to build something greater. Now betrayed by the very system he propped up. And then, the bombshell. In a closed-door meeting with WWE executives, one that was quickly leaked to several insiders, Rollins reportedly said, "If I'm not good enough when I'm hurt, then maybe I'm never good enough to them at all. Maybe it's time I go where they treat loyalty like a currency. Not a liability." The room went silent. Some thought it was a bluff. But others? They saw the flicker of truth in his eyes. The same flicker that lit a fire in CM Punk before he walked. The same flicker that nearly carried Cody Rhodes to a new dynasty. And now, it burns in Seth Rollins. Rumors swirled. AEW. New Japan. A complete hiatus. Even Becky Lynch was seen looking withdrawn in recent appearances, visibly struggling to keep her composure when asked about her husband's health and future. And what of SummerSlam? With Rollins out, and Roman Reigns still silent, the card has become a battlefield of substitutions. CM Punk. Gunther. Solo Sikoa. All vying for space in a landscape Seth once dominated. But the real match? It's happening in the shadows. Because this isn't just about ligaments or contracts. It's about trust. And for Seth Rollins, it may be too late to heal what's already broken. So we ask, is WWE quietly pushing out one of their greatest ever? Did they abandon Rollins at his lowest? And has Paul Heyman just lit the fuse that will blow it all open? Because if Seth Rollins walks, he's not just leaving a company. He's walking away from a kingdom he helped build with his own blood. And once he's gone, WWE may never be the same again. The days that followed Seth Rollins' cryptic post were eerily silent. No official statements. No tweets from WWE. Not even a get-well-soon graphic on Monday Night Raw. It was as if Rollins, once the architect, once the visionary, had been erased. But the fans hadn't forgotten. #WeStandWithSeth began trending on social media, as footage of his greatest moments flooded the internet. The triple threat at Royal Rumble 2015. The unforgettable Money in the Bank cash-in. His wars with Roman, Dean, Finn, and Edge. They remembered. They rallied. But inside Seth's Montecito home, the silence was suffocating. He sat on his porch, leg wrapped in ice, barely able to move without wincing. But the physical pain paled in comparison to the emotional wreckage. He hadn't told Becky everything. Not yet. But she could see it. In his eyes. In the way he barely spoke during breakfast. In the way he flinched when their daughter asked, "When will Daddy be back on TV?" He stared out over the Pacific Ocean, and for the first time in his life, he didn't know the answer. Meanwhile, Paul Heyman, always the storm in calm waters, wasn't finished. He'd planted a seed with his leaked comments. And now, he was watering it with precision. In a rare unfiltered conversation with a podcast known for exposing backstage drama, Heyman said this. "You don't let gladiators rot in the dungeon. You honor them. But what we're seeing now is WWE preparing to silence Seth Rollins. Not because he failed. But because he knows too much." The host was stunned. "What do you mean?" Heyman leaned forward. "Seth has seen what the machine really is. He knows how it chews up passion and spits out profit. He gave them his body. And now they want him to be quiet. To disappear quietly. But Seth Rollins was never quiet. He was loud. And if they try to erase him, he'll scream loud enough for the world to hear." That episode was pulled within hours. But it was too late. Clips circulated everywhere. Twitter. TikTok. Reddit. WWE couldn't contain the fallout anymore. And then, just when things seemed like they couldn't spiral further, AEW made a move. In a move as subtle as it was seismic, Tony Khan tweeted, "Our doors are always open to visionaries. No names. No tags. But everyone knew who it was meant for." The timing was too perfect. The internet exploded. Could it happen? Could Seth Rollins, the flag bearer of WWE's modern era, jump ship? Insiders confirmed AEW had reached out unofficially. No contracts, no negotiations. But feelers. Private conversations with intermediaries. And that's when Becky Lynch got involved. She wasn't silent anymore. At a charity event in Chicago, a reporter asked her, bluntly, "Would Seth ever consider leaving WWE?" Her smile disappeared. She looked down for a moment. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "He's tired. He's hurt. And he doesn't feel valued anymore. So I guess anything's possible." That soundbite tore through the wrestling world like wildfire. Because when the man speaks, the world listens. And suddenly, this wasn't just about Seth. This was about everything. About how WWE treats its veterans. About how loyalty is traded for opportunity. About how stars are discarded the moment they become liabilities. Fans flooded WWE social media accounts with outrage. How can you do this to Seth? He's carried this company on his back. CM Punk 2.0 incoming. But inside WWE headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut, the panic had already begun. Reports leaked that several top executives were split. One faction believed they should do damage control, offer Seth a long-term contract, honor his rehab, and bring him back stronger. But another faction, colder, more strategic, believed it was time to transition to new talent. That Rollins had reached his expiration date. That the brand was bigger than any one man. And at the center of the chaos? Paul Heyman. Watching. Waiting. Some say he has no real loyalty. Others believe he's playing the long game. But one thing is certain. Heyman never moves without purpose. And according to new sources, he's already been meeting with a new faction of wrestlers. A group of outcasts. A group of stars who feel betrayed, overlooked, silenced. People are calling it the Resistance. And at the top of Heyman's list? Seth Rollins. Not as a pawn. But as a leader. Because Heyman knows something most forget. When WWE casts its stars aside, it doesn't kill them. It radicalizes them. And Rollins is ready to rise again. But not as the company's golden boy. As its reckoning. So the question is no longer if Rollins leaves. It's this. What happens when the man who built the house decides to burn it down? What happens when the visionary stops preaching and starts fighting back? This summer, we were supposed to see Seth Rollins headline SummerSlam. But now? We might witness something far more unforgettable. The fall of a kingdom. And the rise of its most dangerous exile. It had been 3 weeks since Seth Rollins disappeared from public view. 3 weeks since he was ruled out of SummerSlam. 3 weeks since his name was quietly removed from WWE merchandise marketing campaigns. And yet, the world hadn't stopped talking about him. In fact, it had only grown louder. Every podcast. Every YouTube channel. Every wrestling journalist. They all wanted to know one thing. Where is Seth Rollins? And then, without warning, he appeared. Not at a WWE event. Not on Raw. Not in some corporate PR video. But at a local independent wrestling show in Davenport, Iowa. His hometown. The promotion was small, barely 500 people in a local rec center. No TV deal. No corporate sponsorship. Just gritty, passionate wrestling. And that night, the final match was interrupted by a figure in a hoodie. At first, fans gasped. Then they screamed. The camera phones went up. Because the man under that hood was Seth Rollins. His left knee still in a brace. His gait slow. But his eyes? His eyes were fire. He didn't say much. He took the mic, stood in the center of the ring, and stared at the crowd in silence for nearly 30 seconds. Then, his voice low and gravelly, he said. Sometimes they tell you you're a king. Until you're not useful anymore. Then you're just a problem. But I'm not done. And I'm not broken. I'm just free. The crowd exploded. And then he dropped the mic. No music. No lights. Just walked out the same way he came in, limping, but unapologetically in control. The footage hit social media within minutes. The entire wrestling world detonated. WWE issued no comment. AEW offered none either. But the symbolism was clear. Seth Rollins wasn't asking for a spotlight. He was reclaiming one. And just 2 days later, the next bomb dropped. Paul Heyman uploaded a cryptic video to his private channel. No title. No description. Just a black screen. And his voice. When history repeats itself, it's often because the truth was never dealt with the first time. They betrayed CM Punk. They manipulated Daniel Bryan. They broke Dean Ambrose. And now, they discarded Seth Rollins. I warned them. I begged them. And they didn't listen. So now, they'll listen to him. And at the end of the video, just one phrase. This summer. Rebirth. Wrestling fans started connecting the dots. Seth Rollins. Independent show. Heyman's support. AEW teasing open doors. Was this the beginning of something bigger? Some believed Rollins was forming a rogue alliance. Others thought he would invade WWE, unannounced, during SummerSlam, injured or not. But those closest to him said something else. That he wasn't looking to return. He was looking to reset. And the first domino was about to fall. Backstage at WWE, chaos had quietly taken over. Triple H was reportedly furious. Stephanie McMahon, silent but watching. Nick Khan? Already exploring damage control. Because WWE had been here before. But not with someone like Rollins. He wasn't just a superstar. He was a pillar. And when a pillar cracks, the whole house shakes. Reports say WWE officials tried to call Rollins. Multiple times. No response. Becky answered, once. And all she said was, He'll speak when he's ready. And not a moment before. Then she hung up. But the storm was already brewing in public. SummerSlam posters were being vandalized by fans. Hashtags like #Rollins deserved better and #Let him speak were trending globally. Even AEW stars started making sly references. One wrestler walked out wearing Rollins-style gear. Another posted, "Real ones don't need suits to be legends." And then came the final straw. On the go-home episode of Raw before SummerSlam, the main event was closing in. Gunther stood tall, the ring cleared, mic in hand. He looked into the camera and said, "There is no one left to stop me. Not Seth. Not Roman. Not even your fake gods of yesterday." And then the lights flickered. The crowd roared. A single word flashed on the Titantron in flaming letters. Rebirth. The screen went black. The show cut to commercial. And social media erupted. Because everyone knew, Seth Rollins wasn't finished. He wasn't forgotten. He was being reborn. But what does rebirth mean? Is it a new faction? A silent rebellion within WWE? A plan with Heyman to dismantle the machine from within? Or, is it goodbye? A final blaze of defiance before leaving for AEW or beyond? As SummerSlam looms, WWE stands on the edge of a knife. One false move. And the visionary becomes a revolutionary. And in the ruins he leaves behind, wrestling will never be the same again. The sun dipped low over Cleveland as 60,000 fans packed the stadium, hearts pounding with anticipation. It was SummerSlam, WWE's second biggest night of the year. But the energy wasn't just about championship matches or brutal rivalries. There was a tension in the air. An unspoken question hovering over every promo, every vignette, every moment of silence between matches. Will Seth Rollins show up? He wasn't scheduled. He wasn't cleared. He hadn't spoken publicly in weeks. But then again, Rollins never needed permission to change history. Backstage, security had been doubled. Reports circulated that Paul Heyman had arrived earlier in the day, alone, refusing interviews. When asked who he was managing that night, he smirked and replied, "No one. Not yet." Executives were nervous. Producers whispered behind closed doors. And inside the stadium, fans held handmade signs like "We want Seth," "Rebirth equals Rollins," and "The Visionary never left." The card proceeded like normal, until the co-main event. Gunther vs. Solo Sikoa for the Intercontinental Championship. A brutal, punishing match. Both men delivering violence with precision. It was everything WWE wanted the fans to see. But then, just as Solo hit a Samoan spike and went for the cover, the lights flickered. Not a full blackout. Just enough to raise every neck hair in the arena. Solo paused, looking around. Gunther stirred. And then the arena lights dimmed completely. The Titantron lit up. A slow pulse. Like a heartbeat. Then, words, in blood-red lettering, appeared across the screen. "What's loyalty worth, when they sell your silence?" The crowd roared. Some stood. Others screamed. And then, Seth Rollins' voice filled the arena. No music. No graphic. Just his voice, recorded, cold, and calm. "I built your empire. Bled for your legacy. Broke for your main events. And when I needed you, you left me in the dark. So now, I'm bringing the dark to you." The Titantron went black. Then static. And then, a live feed appeared. Seth Rollins. Sitting alone. In a black leather chair. His knee still in a brace. His eyes sharp. Focused. He didn't shout. He didn't rage. He spoke like a man who'd made peace with war. "This isn't about revenge. It's about reality. I've been offered everything. AEW, Japan, even Hollywood. But what I want is a reckoning. You don't get to rewrite history.